Welcome everyone to the 2021 EcoSchools Kickoffs. My name's Chris Metropolis, and I'm new to EcoSchools, at least since March 16th, 2020, which some of you might remember as the first day of lockdown. So I have yet to see the EcoSchools program actually working. This will be kind of the first year. Last year was kind of weird. But some of you might remember me from the Toronto Urban Studies Centre, where I worked in outdoor education for 16 years. Here we go. Now that I'm in the sustainability office, I'm thrilled to be working with a team that literally reaches the entire board. And we have even more groups working behind the scenes than you see here, like our new energy and climate action team, who are just getting started to tackle the big issues we have with our old schools and greenhouse gas emissions and future initiatives. Today we've got Pam Miller, our illustrious instructional leader. We've got Natasha Khan, who's filling in for Jen Vetter, and Linda Nacarado is going to show up a little bit later, our awesome admin assistant and past Opal mentor. Joining us a little bit later after that will be a member from EcoSchools Canada. We're going to kick off that part of the webinar. But we are really excited to at least attempt getting our EcoSchools program going again, given all the COVID business that has made it so difficult. Obviously, we're going to have many challenges and restrictions to deal with for the rest of the year. But again, we're just going to do what we can. What else can we do? And, you know, COVID has certainly been like a wet blanket thrown on our fire, making our efforts seem even more futile and depressing. Luckily, we're going to be sharing better perspectives to embrace, to foster positive attitudes for you and your students. We acknowledge that we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. I'd also like to extend this TDSB land acknowledgement with a video made by a group of Peel High School students. Their version offers a deeper perspective towards reconciliation and understanding our role in the world through an Indigenous lens.
When they are home, when they are home.
To try and understand how special and powerful the Indigenous connection to Mother Earth is, let's have a look at the Honorable Harvest, which is a pledge of mutual exchange and cooperation between humankind and the land. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you, so that you may take care of them. Ask permission before taking. Abide by the answer. Never take the first. Never take the last. Take only what you need. Take only which is given. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Use it respectfully. Never waste what you've taken. Share. Give thanks for what you've been given. Give a gift in return for what you have taken. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. So now what? Land acknowledgements aren't about placing blame. They're about taking responsibility. This is why we have land acknowledgements.
Take a moment to pause and acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit Nation, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat, and is now home to many other diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people.
So we did have some EcoSchools last year. I know it was certainly the most challenging year, and a lot of teachers understandably didn't really get into the program. It was just way too much. But we did have some. So we did have 41 schools sign up with EcoSchools Canada. It was kind of our first pilot year. This is also kind of a pilot year since we're getting many more schools involved. And of those 41, 22 schools submitted at the end of the year for assessment. And of those 22, we had 5 that didn't quite make it to bronze, 4 bronze, 1 silver, 5 gold, and 7 platinum. So even with a pandemic, it is possible to become a platinum eco school. You know, you got to do a bit more work. But all of them said how much easier it was to use the EcoSchools Canada program than what we had in the past. And so we're looking forward for all of you to experience this new platform that really does make EcoSchools a lot more fun than it has been in the past, where As Alex said yesterday, it's like filling out your taxes every year. And we don't want you to do that. That's no fun. We have a few goals for you today. And the first one, of course, sharing effective ways that you can teach climate change in the classroom, especially around the idea of student anxiety. That's going to be one of the main focuses today, because we are hearing more about that. I'm going to lead you through registering with EcoSchools Canada. So we're actually going to do that today and start your plan and choose some actions that will support your school in taking climate action. We will share with you resources and supports available. And somebody asked in the chat, are you going to get access to these slides? Yes, we will be sharing all the slides with you, as well as a whole bunch of links to wonderful things. And lastly, on this slide, you will all get together and share your EcoSchools knowledge. And so those level 5 black belts will be leaning on you especially to, in your group, to share that knowledge. And what you can do to develop your program moving forward, especially during this COVID nastiness. And a quick look at our agenda. We're almost at our 9:15 part where Pam's going to take over. Then we're going to hear from Linda, our wonderful admin assistant, and talking about what the TDSB has been doing, specifically within the Sustainability Office. We'll be taking a break at 10. Then, of course, our EcoSchools Canada rep will talk to us for a bit, and then we'll do the registration stuff with me. And around 11:05, 11:10, we'll do the breakout rooms and a wrap up at the end by 11:30.
I'm just going to stop sharing again. Just address some of the questions in the chat. When Chris walks you through the EcoSchools actions, yes, you can become platinum without composting. That's the best part about the EcoSchools Canada. There's less on what you must do and more opportunities to do what you can do. And of course, we would never penalize a school or would try not to penalize school for what you can't do. We also heard yesterday the Toronto waste wizard let us know that paper towel can go back in the green bin, and that's brand new. So I'll be sending out information on that. Again, every time the new regulations change, it gets a little crazy. And those of you who wanted the link to the land acknowledgements, these come from my husband and the drama kids. There's about 12 of them. And this one in particular was read by an Anishinaabe student, but they're amazing. And they come with different O Canadas. So for virtual, I rotated them through last year through my virtual school, and I'm happy to share them with you. The land acknowledgements do come from the Peel District School Board because they include the Chippewa, but I think for most of us, that will still work, especially when we add it to our own land acknowledgements. Again, welcome to our secondary staff. No worries. I am just so glad you're here because it just shows me how wonderful and amazing you are and how keen you are. And no, you're not taking up funds. We didn't lose the Environmental Legacy Fund as we thought we did. Last year for the virtual school, that they clawed back our funds and we thought we had nothing. And then this year we were told, no, we didn't lose any of them. So that means good news for us. There's still AQ subsidies. There's still trees. There's still bike racks. Oh my gosh, it's such an exciting year. So just wanted to respond to some of the questions in the chat. Awesome. All right. So again, welcome. So many of you know that in August, you heard the news from the UN Secretary General called the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change as a code red for humanity. He continued to add, the alarm bells are deafening and the evidence is irrefutable. Greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel burning and deforestation are choking our planet and putting billions of people at immediate risk. As the graph on the slide shows, the decisions we make today and over really the next decade of action is what they're calling it, are critical in ensuring a safe and sustainable world for everyone, both now and in the future. Unfortunately, with every crisis, children are the most vulnerable. UNICEF also released a report this year providing the first comprehensive view of children's exposure and vulnerability to the impacts of climate change, revealing 1 billion children are at immediate high risk. And of course, we know that's often disproportionately affects those that are marginalized, those in poverty, and those without access to resources. The children in Toronto, for sure, will feel the impacts of climate change and are already feeling the impacts. Just in the chat, what have you noticed with the students in front of you? How are they being impacted by climate change? Yes, absolutely. More food insecurity. Food is more expensive. Not all food is coming in. And anxiety and fear. Oh my gosh, my grade 8s last year, some of them just couldn't visualize a better future. And heat, yes. Linden, BC was crazy, but heat here is also crazy. Yes, aware of the election and what would happen if different parties weren't going to act on climate change. And I'm glad that we do get to use our outdoor classrooms. Great. So you can see in the chat, we have a number of responses. So you know that this is an issue we all need to work on. The Canadian Pediatric Society indicates that children across Canada may be impacted by extreme weather events like the one in Barrie this summer, displacing them from their homes and then leading to food and water shortages. Record heavy rainstorms like the ones we had in Toronto in 2016 can override sewage facilities and contaminate water. This summer's wildfires caused dangerous levels of air pollution, and the hot and humid air from heat waves impacted the air quality. And of course, we've seen a rise in ticks and the risk of getting Lyme disease. Furthermore, children can be disproportionately affected by these and other climate-related changes because they metabolize more water, air, and food per kilogram of body weight than adults, and their bodies are not always as fully developed and able to respond in the same way. And then many of you mentioned the mental health challenges. According to a survey of 10,000 young people across 10 countries released in September of this year, almost half of young people say that their feelings about climate change negatively impact their daily lives. More than 3 in every 4 young people say the future is frightening with regard to climate change. And of course, I mentioned my grade 8s last year were always worried. And again, a lot of them are saying there's nothing we can do. Because of these reasons and more, children and youth have contributed least to climate change and have no voting power. They are demanding us and other leaders to take just and equitable climate action. In a recent episode of What on Earth, host Laura Lynch talked with youth that are both involved in campaigns to improve climate curriculum in schools, as they feel it's a critical topic that's not covered in much depth. In our curriculum, it's really not there, although the environmental issues are there. They really don't get it till high school, but they want more. But climate change is not the only existential crisis facing humans today. In fact, racial injustice is a 400-year-old crisis, with slavery existing in Canada for over 200 years. However, climate change takes any problem you already have, any threat you were already under, and multiplies it. And this graphic shows how everything is connected: women's rights, economic waste or wealth, gentrification, immigration. Adapting populations that are already vulnerable to human rights abuses, from police violence to housing discrimination to poverty, face the biggest challenges in adapting to climate change, because climate change has the potential to worsen their situation and thereby worsen pre-existent inequalities. Climate change becomes not the great equalizer, as sort of once thought, everybody's in this same boat, but no, it's rather the great multiplier. And as TDSB, we've been working on climate change for the past 20 years through the different boards, through eco-schools, but really the roots of climate change are much older. The practices of colonization and capitalism, including exploitation of nature and people, unrestrained extractivism, excessive pollution, deforestation, and land degradation, as well as racial and gender oppression and injustice, have led to the climate change crisis we see today. This is Larissa Crawford. She's a published Indigenous and anti-racism researcher and climate change activist. She carries Métis ancestry from Penetang, Ontario, and Afro-Caribbean ancestry from Jamaica. In her interview with Oxfam Canada, she shared, "We need to actively recognize that the work that we do in climate justice work must create space to restore relationships, to acknowledge the harm of systemic racism and how that is interrelated with our work in climate justice." And so there's a growing momentum around the world to harness the power of education to combat and adapt to climate change and ensure young people have critical thinking, problem solving, and collaboration skills needed to take action. Recent research shows that if only 16% of high school students in high and middle income countries were to receive climate change education, we could see nearly a 19 gigaton reduction of carbon dioxide by 2050, depending on how it is taught. So in the chat, what would you put in your climate change education? How might you teach climate education for your students, thinking that we are K-8? How do we do this? Great ideas in here. And again, we know that in the youngs, our kindergartens, our grade 1s, grades 2, grades 3, Indigenous teachings, connecting to the land, building relationships with all our relations, really getting their hands dirty. And then as we get older, reminding them, again, small changes, habits of mind, definitely social justice, racial justice is so important. And so look at all of the ideas that are in the chat. Yeah, love and connection to the land. And in the latest work by Robin Wall-Kimmer, she did a wonderful presentation through the U of T. She talks about love. Love can be empowering, not guilt. Love. So love for the land, really important. So when we look at our own TDSB mission, you would notice it says they need to become responsible, contributing members of a democratic and sustainable society. So as educators, we have both an opportunity and yet a moral and ethical imperative to shift towards more environmental sustainability and socially just paradigm. And we can't wait for the curriculum to catch up. If our students are going to survive and thrive as contributing members of a democratic and sustainable society, we must help them develop not only adaptation skills, but ways that they'll be able to survive and thrive on the planet in balance with other living species. So you've started the conversation in the chat. What does this look like in our classrooms, in schools? How might we integrate effective climate change education across the curriculum and instruction? And how might we model environmental and climate resiliency efforts in our schools? I've been doing a lot of reading this summer, and I put some of the books up on the screen. We are so thrilled to have the author of this book, the Field Guide to Climate Anxiety, Sarah Jaquette Ray, come to our November 6th conference as our keynote. So hopefully you'll be able to sign up for that. The world becomes what you teach. We just actually had a webinar by Zoe Weil, and she talks about solutionary education, and that webinar is recorded. If you haven't seen this book by Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson and the person at Project Drawdown, All We Can Save, is amazing. And it really brings to the forefront marginalized voices such as women and people of color. And of course, the courage to teach. Sometimes just getting back to our values and understanding why we're in teaching in the first place will give us energy and the motivation to move forward. We need to reground ourselves. How and why do we teach in such a difficult time, or how do we do this? So I'm going to focus on 3 different big ideas for you to walk away with today. 1, how do we tell a different story? 2, how can we live in the world we want to save? And 3, how can we take action? How can we do what we can with what we have where we are? So when I think about telling a different story, I think about how every day we're bombarded with dramatic images of impending doom that is being transmitted and exaggerated by news media. I mean, all our films are about apocalyptic futures. But in fact, our present day climate narrative is actually not. We are bombarding them with images and words that tell them that humans are greedy, consumed apocalyptic visions of the future, like this is real, the house going melting by permafrost. And the message often, the underlying message is, if you're not horrified by all this, you are not paying attention. Why isn't this working? So again, we find out that facts don't change behaviors. The more we know, the less we actually do. And that's because we get paralyzed. So doom and gloom actually paralyzes us and moves us into fear and, of course, guilt on top of that. And also clumping all humans is bad for the environment. Ignores indigenous reciprocal relationships with nature over millennial. All humans are not bad for the environment. There are people that are doing this really well. And it also undermines our evolving efforts to live better with one another in nature. So we need to get rid of this narrative. We need a new narrative. So the research says that we need to focus less on information and more on social and emotional learning. Climate change education rarely accounts for students' emotional lives, even though research shows that emotions are central to our ability to retain and act on information. Think about math fear. If you're feared, about math, you won't settle in your you won't be able to do it. So again, it's that growth mindset, but also understanding the emotions. So we need to give students more options than fight, flight, or freeze. Mindfulness, a practice of staying in the moment, is a key form of emotional intelligence. Mindfulness can increase our capacity to be present with challenging emotions and thoughts without overreacting. And mindfulness can also help foster courage to move beyond fear by channeling our emotions to act in effective ways than reactionary ways. So one book I read said, don't get fearful, just get angry and then get moving. I thought that was pretty good. Whoops, I forgot to change the slide. There it is. Research also shows that we need to widen the scope of climate change education. Cross-disciplinary research suggests that climate change should focus on the cognitive, but also on the emotions, actions, and absolutely social justice. What we often think of our hands, our head, and our heart. In kindergarten and primary grades, that might be very local and related to helping people and all our relations as we tend to the earth. Whereas older grades, we can link climate injustice with other types of discrimination based on social and cultural identities, including race, class, and gender. By considering a wider scope when we take action, students are better equipped not only to address climate justice, but also to further climate action and other forms of justice in doing so. And of course, our work in equity talks about we need to widen the scope and focus on stories of environmental and climate justice, and how students and educators can amplify these underrepresented voices and stories. And the reason that Dr. Anaya Elizabeth Johnson actually made the book All We Can Save is because women's voices in the climate leadership arena are often suppressed, underrepresented, or just plain absent. And so we need to ensure that we are promoting the ideas, histories, and experiences of people from one or more marginalized positionalities to ensure ongoing shifts in historic power inequities. And I love this part. The link is live on my screen, and we'll send you these links. But have your students tell their own climate justice story and be the activist in their local area. And so that's a lesson plan from an organization that we can tap into. And lastly, we need to hack the story. As mentioned, 80% of all messaging around climate change is framed in negative terms. As a result, most of our youth can imagine the end of the world rather than visualize a better future. Ellen Kelsey points out in Hope Matters, and we had Ellen as a keynote speaker a couple of years ago, that environmental solutions are emerging and maturing all over the world, but solutions are often ignored or trivialized or underreported. Other scholars point out that our brains are wired to focus on the urgent and immediate threats, and the media plays to this tendency. So we need to teach students to be critical of the stories they are hearing or seeing on social media, and pay attention to how these stories are making them feel, and then be re-inspired by solutions journalism. So in telling a different story, what narrative do you want to include more of in your practice? Is it more solutions orientated? Is it more emotionally focused work? Is it more social justice and climate justice? What do you want to include more of? And by focusing on this, we also support our own mental health. So the next idea is to live in the world you want to save. If we're going to build our relationship with the earth and the earth that sustains us, we need to actually ditch the guilt on how our consumer habits are destroying the earth, because it actually won't change our behaviors. Doesn't mean we need to not change our consumer habits. We just need to ditch the guilt. Because in fact, when we hear about climate change, it often promotes people to go out and buy more stuff. Believe it or not, our guilt and fear causes us to seek happiness elsewhere. And what better solution than retail therapy? My husband is guilty of this. Every day I seem to see something from Amazon coming onto our doorstep. So yeah, we need to ditch the guilt, but be mindful. According to a recent study, gratitude for nature's gifts can rein in our existential angst about climate change, expressing appreciation for what we've been given, and inspires a sense of contentment that makes people want to give in turn rather than consume more. Bottom line, by focusing on gratitude, wonder, and cultivating joy, we are more likely to be working towards restoring relationships than destroying them. And of course, you've already mentioned in the chat, we need to reconnect with our outdoors, with other people, with nature, because getting outside connects us to ourselves, to each other, and to the world around us. And best part is that time spent in nature positively contributes to our own well-being. All students need to have that benefit of being better and being well. So young people deserve these opportunities to learn, thrive, and appreciate the outdoors so they can make a personal connection and long-lasting connections. And I love this from Adrienne Marie Brown, who is a scholar, a writer, a doula, a Black feminist, and an activist. She says we need to partner with the earth, not save it. We're in partners. We're part of this earth. We're connected. Yeah, Fatima, I like your thought there. Can we go without buying things? So the last part of our story is to take action. And as I thought the quote was from Teddy Roosevelt, it's actually from Bill Widener about do what you can with what you've got where you are. And so to reach our climate goals, each of us need to take action individually, collectively, locally, and globally. But it's important to note that it is unjust to put the burden of climate change solely on individuals. Individual actions alone are insufficient to address the climate crisis. A fixation on voluntary individual action takes the pressure off of the push for government policies to hold corporate polluters accountable. And when oil industries like BP ask people to calculate their carbon footprint and take steps towards shrinking their individual footprint, you know BP is shifting the blame to individuals so that BP can be off the hook. The truth is we need more, and we need both. We need both. We need to advocate for systemic change while also still encouraging individual behavior changes. There is definitely power in the collective, and we're not surprised with that as being part of Eco Schools Canada. Oops. So right now there are at least 1 and possibly 2 million organizations worldwide working on issues of environmental and social justice. And change often starts with a small group of early adopters who then push the majority to think in a new way. With our critical mass, industry, government, and institutes like ours take notice and eventually change. And a great example of this is our Eco School program. You know, it started by 3 people in the TDSB right after amalgamation, Eleanor Dudar, Richard Christie, and Mika Foster. And within then the next year it was 15 schools. And now we have sold the program or given the program to Eco Schools Canada. And now there are 3,000 schools across Canada and 1,700 just during a pandemic. So small changes together are huge. And so, of course, but when we work together in a team, you can overcome the feelings of helplessness and powerlessness, and we become change agents together. And the last slide is really, if you remember nothing else, and this is really important for your students, we need to teach students to believe in their personal efficacy. The decisions we make to take action are strongly motivated by our perceived efficacy. If we feel that our actions will never be big or impactful enough to solve the problem, we end up adopting a drop in the bucket mindset that causes feelings of despair and hopelessness. The bigger the problem, the less fixable it seems, and so the more likely we are to do nothing instead. But to combat our paralysis, we need to be reminded that small actions and connections do create complex systems, and we need to nudge ourselves to do the next thing or the very first small action. Remind students they don't need to be more powerful than they already are. Encourage them to do what they can with what they have where they are. And so as we move to the end of this, and I invite Linda to talk about what the board is doing, what small action might you start this year, either individually, collectively, or politically? And my small action is I joined the ETT Social Justice Group to learn more and to be an advocate for social and environmental justice. What action might you take? Yeah, think about that and put that in the chat. All right, so Linda is here. Oh yeah, fire drill, yard duty. Feel free to come in and out as you need to. This is a bit crazy, right? We are recording, so if you missed any of this, you'll be able to get back to that. Okay, so Linda, you're here, I believe.
Yes, hello.
There you are. Great. And so Linda's been, you may know her as the Earth Day Canada Opal coordinator, and we've been able to, again, scoop her up as part of our team. And so she's been working really well with Richard on the climate action guide that was just passed by the trustees. Is that right? Or put forward
it actually, it goes to board, the regular meeting tonight.
Okay, great. And thanks for putting some more ideas on the actions that you'll take. So Linda, take us away. What is the board doing?
So what I'm going to be focusing on today are actions that are happening at a board level, and those that we have highlighted in this new report, which again was first presented to trustees on October 4th. And now today we'll go to the regular board meeting. And so we'll pop into the chat a link that you can take a look more in depth at this report. But to give you some context, what this report is doing is that it's building upon discussions already around climate change and climate action. So in 2019, when the City of Toronto came out with their climate emergency declaration, the Board of Trustees endorsed that declaration. And in 2020, in the spring, a report was put forward to trustees outlining sort of planned actions that would address climate change and new initiatives. And a big piece of that was the creation of a new team that would specifically look at energy and climate action and how we could do better at reducing our GHG emissions. And now what you'll see, the last item there is what's just coming to the board, hot off the press. This is our annual report, and it outlines a pretty strategic direction for the board in terms of addressing climate change. So this quote is found in that report. I think it's really powerful because it tells us that students don't believe we're doing enough. And that feeling leads them to being really helpless, feeling really overwhelmed, scared. And so what we're trying to do is show that there's real action being taken at the board. And this action needs to extend beyond just how we teach and what is taught. It also needs to include our infrastructure. So how buildings are operated and what our school grounds look like, how they're designed and maintained. How do all of those show our commitment to climate action? So traditionally, we've been really good at this. I mean, seeing so many people on the screen right now shows our interest and our passion for making sure that climate change is part of our education, part of what we learn, and how we teach students. But we need to balance it with what students see in their schools and in their environments. So what are the operational changes and investments that show that commitment to climate action? In the report, you'll see that it's designated into 6 key areas, and there's 22 specific actions that are outlined. I'm not going to go into detail on all of those. I'll highlight a few from each section. But the real idea here is that these actions were strategically chosen to be meaningful and to be achievable. The idea being that we'll report back to board in a year's time and be able to say how far we've come with these goals. So the first one, this really is focused around youth-led climate action projects. And this will go hand in hand with the launch of a new youth climate action guide, which will be coming later this fall. And that's really to help our students get engaged in community level projects around climate action. And that's partnered also with the city to provide funding through grants to help enable those projects. All right, the next section here, buildings. This is a really big one. We have identified a key action, which is to establish better supports for caretakers to effectively operate their buildings. And we know how important this is because I'm sure a lot of you are teaching curriculum that's embedded with environmental messaging and ideas. And maybe it's the middle of winter and you had to crack open the window because it's really hot in your classroom. So there are key initiatives planned around building automation, but also around caretaker training to help reduce some of those greenhouse gases. Because if you take a look at the emissions chart here, a huge amount of the TDSB's annual emissions come from natural gas, which is the heating of our buildings. Okay, the next section we're addressing is transportation. This feels like a really exciting step in the right direction. It's the transition towards electric vehicles. And this means not only purchasing new electric, trucks and vans that are part of the TDSB fleet, but also the infrastructure that goes along with it. So planning ahead for charging stations and training for mechanics to work on these electric vehicles. Our next section here, I think we all understand how important trees are, both from a teaching and learning perspective, creating a welcoming environment for students to learn in, but also in terms of their environmental impacts. And so the action here is to double the amount of trees that will be planted annually. And this is part of the TDSB's large tree planting program. What I think is really exciting about this is how those schools will be selected for tree planting. They'll specifically be selected based on climate change mitigation and need. So that means we'll take into consideration criteria like your LOI, but also existing canopy coverage, proximity to major arterial roads and highways, so how much particulate matters in your air, and heat vulnerability. And we're using data that's coming from Toronto Public Health to get that information and to factor that into our choices. Communications, it's incredible to think how much the TDSB has already done around environmental initiatives, being, of the first school board to create and pilot the Eco Schools program. We have a 20-year history of environmental initiatives, but we haven't always been great at sharing that with the public. So this is the exciting new launch of our website. You probably have been familiar with the Eco Schools site in the past. This is a refresh of that site to include a much broader scope of environmental initiatives at the board. And so you'll find items related to education, but you'll also see various actions and leadership initiatives as well. And so we'll pop that into the chat for you to take a look at that. And lastly is the Environmental Legacy Fund. And so you may or may not be familiar with this. This was created back in 2010. It was outlined as part of the TDSB's first climate action report. Revenues that are included into this fund come from the sale of carbon credits, the income from the sale of electricity that's generated at the TDSB-owned solar projects, and also the sale of TDSB waste, e-waste. And so this fund has traditionally been used to help fund for professional development for teachers. Maybe you've received an AQ subsidy in the past, or you've attended a conference like the one coming up on November 6th that is free for TDSB employees because it's funded through the Environmental Legacy Fund. What we're addressing here is that the action is that the terms of reference need to change so that we can include new sources of revenue, because we want to do a lot more and we want to show that this is a crisis, and so we need to be funding it appropriately. And so one of those changes will be to actually funnel in utility incentives and rebates into that fund so it can go forward and fund future environmental initiatives. All right. And this is a really important part of creating that atmosphere of hope, of change, is to tell that different story. And so I'm going to share a couple. These are highlighted on the timeline that you'll see on that new environment website. But just some, kind of, did you know that while the pandemic was raging, we actually replaced over 800 drinking fountains with water bottle filling stations. So our goal here is to get up to a standard of 1 water bottle filling station for every 250 students. And so this happened at, close to 500 schools in the board to try to get us up to that new standard. Did you know that we have solar panels at schools? So solar panels are on about close to 350 schools in the TDSB. And you can actually search those schools on the new website, and you can see what their capacity is. And we've also included a way for you with your students to be able to calculate solar energy generation. So if you know that you're at that school and you have an idea of what the capacity is, can you figure out what the carbon offset would be and what that solar energy generation is? And so this is something that, again, is not new. This started in 2010 with the board investing in renewable energy, but it's a really good story to share with our students. And the last one, did you know that the TDSB actually has a sawmill? It's on site in the west end of the city in one of our TDSB administrative sites, but it actually uses TDSB skilled trades to repurpose wood both from fallen trees on TDSB property, but also coming from the city. And that wood is used to create some of the school ground seating, benches you might see in your yards, and also wood that's supplied for our technical programs. And so this is a really important way that we are thinking about the reuse and the repurpose of valuable materials. So I think it's really important to highlight these and to encourage you to head over to the website if you want to learn more about them, because it's really inspiring and hopefully helps create a little bit of hope in a different future. And so that's that timeline that I've mentioned. You'll see this on the landing page of the new environment site. And I hope you get excited and do check out the climate report, which outlines a whole lot of other actions that are very exciting for a new direction for the board. And Pam, I think if we've got time, I wasn't checking the chat if we've got questions.
A year on Zoom and I still forget to unmute myself. Okay, so I've been looking at the chat and we've been trying to answer them as they come along. So the Sawmill idea right now, I know we've got a webinar on October 27th where Karen Dobrecki, our grounds person, will be invited to come and share what's going on with and share about the water bottle refill stations and can talk about the Sawmill, but also talk about the seating available for schools. So I know, Dorgana, you were looking into that. Right now we're waiting for, I understand we're waiting for a part. The Sawmill right now is broken. I don't want to say broken, but it's broken. It needs a part to go. And so the seating for schools and benches and that is just on hold, but Karen can walk you through on how you might get that. There might be the form through our new website, but absolutely be part of that. Of course, Karen is part of our team, so you can also reach out to her. So the other thing that's come up, Linda, is we're so excited that the caretakers now get the TLC that the teachers have been getting. So with the caretakers, there'll be training, especially around the automatic system. And of course, with COVID, the windows are open for better ventilation, the HEPA filters. But at this point, we are going to put out better messaging to all facility team leaders and caretakers about the waste streams because they keep changing the rules on us. So just briefly, organics can still be collected by schools. And when we get to the World Cafe, you might want to share how you do it. But we're suggesting that in a classroom cohort, if you have organics, there's the little paper bags that you can get per day and put the organics there. And then that way they're not touching other people's organics and then they can drop it off on a green bin. The green bins can be bagged by the caretaker and then put on the curb or put in your bulk bin. In terms of recycling, absolutely recycling programs. If you have a strong eco team, the students are to be part of recycling and they need to take the bin to a centralized, or the classroom bins to a centralized location. Please note that caretakers sometimes do throw out the recycling into the landfill because it's not sorted and it's contaminated. And so they're not in charge of making sure it's not contaminated. And I'm glad Amanda Brown is here because I know that you had your eco team trained for, checking the contamination and giving the oops tag. And I hope you'll share that idea. But if we can make sure that recycling is not contaminated, whether it's paper or not wet or clean recycling, then the caretakers will be putting that into recycling. Again, with COVID, that may have changed because they didn't want people wandering through the schools. But with your staggered lunches and that coming up with a schedule or putting it out in the hall for folks to pick it up, we don't obviously want to break the cohort ruling, and we don't. Public health doesn't consider people walking in the hall beside, passing each other as close contact, so that's still allowed. Questions for Linda. I know we're getting a lot of questions. Yes, so green bin recycling and landfill are all part of the caretaker's overall responsibility with waste. And again, people sometimes get mixed messaging depending what legacy they're from or what boards. East York seems to have done the best. The rest of us aren't always on board. What else have we got? Seating for the school, Fatima. No, the school ground upgrades are covered by central budgets, and there's more bike racks, and you can order bike racks too. All right, what other questions might you have about what the board should be doing or is doing? All right, and of course, lots of discussion about how we do teams, cohorting with eco teams. So lots of folks are doing the teams in classrooms. Jason, about tree planting program. Linda, do you want to speak about that, about tree planting?
Sure. So currently right now, there's sort of two different streams of tree planting. So there's the planned tree planting, sort of what I mentioned. So adding trees for canopy or part of a larger school ground redesign. And then there's also sort of tree planting that comes up, whether that's replacing a fallen tree or diseased tree, memorial trees, things like that. And so both of those are addressed through our colleague, Karen DeBrucke, whose contact you can find again on our new website. But that's pretty much where our tree planting programs come through, those two sort of, I guess, sections. And yeah, we can kind of discuss sort of where your school fits in terms of what the plan is for that year in terms of addressing those schools of highest need. Okay. And I think I know that with some smaller projects, students have gotten involved, things like the nature study areas or planting up of kind of like grove areas. I think it depends also on the tree planting program. So we have the large tree planting program, which obviously requires, different kinds of materials and machines and tradespeople to do that work. And so I think there's probably great opportunities for students to observe and maybe ask questions, but not as much to get involved in the work of planting.
Okay. I see the solar panels was answered. And so to let everybody know, all the schools that could have solar panels have solar panels. The schools that don't have solar panels there's something wrong with the roof or the sun or the way the sun catches on the roof. I'm just looking at, there isn't an appliance, the old appliances were in the contract of picking up e-waste, so that's still going on. Artex was the one who actually paid us for the e-waste. We're working on that contract as we speak. But in terms of old appliances in your school, it is the discretionary or school budget that replaces those. So it really depends on what the principal determines important. Mulch. Linda, do you know about mulch?
Yeah. So mulch is something that's actually ordered through your caretakers and your facility lead teams. So you go through that route. If you had any questions, your principal should be able to sort that out. But if the principal needed more support, they again could reach out to our team to get that. But it is, I guess, like a ordering process that is facilitated through caretaking.
Okay, great. And again, that's free to the school. I think it was just the delivery, maybe, that there's a small charge. I can't remember now. Delamping. We noticed that in our office too. We're in the office 1 day a week, 2 days a week in November. And so, yes, you can order those waste posters from us and lights off stickers and all of that. I don't know if the form's up, but delamping, we actually just asked the caretaker he's done one fluorescent tube off in each of the particular unit. And so it is not a board program, but absolutely you can ask them to do that where necessary. And then I'm just watching our time. And anything with the gardening, I know Chris, at Elm Bank, their ground was so tough that they brought in the rototillers to do it. So if there's something like that that needs to be done, Karen is your person. Between Karen and Gail, they'll support you in that work. All right, so you're welcome to stay on if you have a particular question that you'd like to get answered, but I also encourage you to go take a body break, stretch. Let's not get ourselves Zoom fatigued, staring at ourselves all day. And Linda is here if you have any other questions about what the board's doing or how you can get involved through the Environmental Sustainability Community Advisory Board or other ways. All right. Well, and so why don't we move our program along? Welcome, Eco Schools Canada. Bonjour. I see that you are, we're so excited to actually be with Eco Schools Canada because now we can offer French resources. Woohoo! Okay, so Ludwine, do you want to tell us? And after you give your spiel and welcome, then I'm just going to interview you with a few questions.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see so many people, and I'm very happy to be with you today. So my name is Ludivine. I'm the bilingual program manager at Eco Schools Canada. And as I said, I'm very happy to be part of this TDSB Eco Schools Kickoff meeting today to say hello, but also to officially welcome TDSB schools to the Eco Schools Canada program. So I know that many of you are already involved with the TDSB Eco School for many years. So you already know how it helps with big environmental impacts, student leadership, and professional development. And now we are very excited to have you on our national platform that you will be able to see the effort at your school in a bigger context and how it participates to the collective impact across Canada. Also, the TDSB team will, of course, continue to support you, and I can hear already with you environmental initiatives and everything you do at school, where our team will be here to answer any question related to the platform, the application, and certifying your school. So on behalf of the whole team of Eco School Canada, we say welcome, and we really look forward to working with you this year.
Oh, so thank you. And we're so excited to be part of the bigger umbrella. You know, for a while we've run the two separate programs. We've paid a lot to run the two separate programs, and now we're under your umbrella. We get to take advantage of, as I said, your French resources. We get to be part of your newsletter, all your certification supports. And I think the action cards are an amazing way. Of course, this new branding was why we decided to move, because it's so much easier to customize your program. Now, in the room, we have some black belt Eco Schools people. They've been doing this for a while, but there's always people that are new to it, whether they're new and their school has it, or they're new to the program as well. Can you tell me why schools choose to be in Eco Schools?
For many reasons, but also like most of the time, you're already doing the work at your school. Like when we welcome your school, there is already so much happening with you, environmental initiatives, things you don't even realize that's already happening at your school. So I think it's a great program to actually show you that first, like to show you the impact you already have, and then take that to the next steps and really support you. And as you said, give you all the resources you need to get there.
Nice.
So yeah. And if you're new, totally new school, we always say like start small and then every year like add a little bit more so you can build something that's like long-term and sustainable.
Great. And how many schools are under your umbrella now?
Oh, that's a good question because so this platform was launched last year. So it's a new platform. And last year we had 1,200 schools, around 1,200 schools, despite COVID, which was amazing. We were very impressed by that. I know we have much more schools in the system that were certifying with us before. I don't have this number exactly, but right now on the platform, I know we over like 1,200, even more now. Like I think we're over 1,400 schools.
Yeah. And I think Alex mentioned something like 3,000 before COVID. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, he's the data person, so he knows
Yes.
on the program side, so I can tell all about resources.
And because you have such expertise with the French side, tell us a highlight of working on that side. What's great about EcoSchools and working with the French community, or what resources do you offer for French teachers?
So what I really love with this platform, personally, I'm annoyed when I go on a website and I click on French and I'm back to the homepage and I lost my page. On the platform, which is great, you can just switch between English and French all the time. So for example, if you do even French immersion in an English school, it's very easy to just answer, like have access to it in French. And we also have teachers who sometimes answer in French, sometimes in English. And because we are a bilingual team, we'll be able to access it anywhere, even if you answer French or English. But I will say it's very easy to switch between. And also, as you said, we have a lot of resources. Everything is available in French, and us as a support also staff, we can answer in French.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for coming in and sharing your welcome, your enthusiasm for this program, and telling us, how as our sister, site, but now we're under the big umbrella. So we're so excited to be part of this.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure, and good luck, everyone, with everything you're doing at your schools.
Okay,
Bye.
Great. Bye. Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to Chris. And so some of our questions on how do we start this is all around the action plan, how you can choose small actions and just get started very slowly, do it well. But Chris is going to, he's the wizard with the tech stuff. He's going to walk us through. So by the end of today, you are going to be registered. You're going to have an action plan, and you're going to have started your first action card. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Pam. We are calling this the ECA, and if you didn't catch that from Ludovine, the ECA, and here we go, I'm getting connected here, is the EcoSchools Certification Application. So I don't want to have to say that 500 times, so we'll just say ECA when we are talking about this thing. Just have a little mini agenda about what I'm going to be doing with you, and so we'll find out where the heck the website is. It's all online. How to register yourself. If you haven't, you're going to pick a little avatar. Register your school, again, if you haven't already. Some of you may have done this last year. What school info we have to put in. Perhaps you're going to add another user. And if you're here with a coworker, then you can both get registered today. Starting your plan. And this is something, again, like the EcoSchools program in the past, you have to kind of register each year. You don't have to put all the school info in every year. It's only because most of the TDSB schools are not in their database. You can add and remove actions, and I think Lori was already asking about that, what an action looks like, and again, we'll be starting your first action, so you'll have experience sort of going through the whole thing, and then it's really easy to continue after that. But as I go through these steps, don't do anything until you see the timer. So I'll be explaining how to do steps, and then I'll give you some time to complete those steps yourself. So you will be switching between your browser and the Zoom window as we go through all these steps. So here's what the website, the homepage looks like, where you're going to first register, and then later on, you'll just log in. And so when you get to this page, you just tap on that register button at the bottom, and that will get us started. So I'm going to give you the URL. It is app.ecoschools.ca. Now remember, wait for the timer. You can do this in English or French. You'll see that up at the top. And once you've got the site loaded in, you can tap on that register button, and there is the timer. So 30 seconds to go to your browser, type in app.ecoschools.ca, and click register. And if you need more than 30 seconds, that's okay. It's just keep us on track as best as possible. And if you have any issues, again, please add them to the chat. I'm going to open up the chat. And thank you, Natasha, for putting the link in, so you can just click the link in the chat. Carmela, for No, you can have as many people as you need, and we'll talk about that in a sec when we get to the adding other people. But for now, you're just going to do yourself because you have to do one person at a time anyway. So on the contact information page, this is your information. So please put in your TDSB email. This is your password and you. And of course, your role is going to be a staff member. And I'll give you guys 1 minute to fill out the contact information. So you can add other staff members. You can add students down the road. We'll talk about students in a moment. And again, any issues or questions, throw those into the chat, or you can even just turn on your mic. And the great thing about this system, if you're used to the old EcoSchools application, you don't have to be behind the firewall. You can be at home, you can be at the cottage. Shh, don't tell anyone. Tanya, yeah?
I don't know what I did wrong. I had tried signing up, like starting this a few nights ago at home.
Okay.
And I had trouble. So now I tried to do it again and reset my password, and it says invalid token.
Oh, that sounds like something weird happening with their server. And Dragana also got a weird error. So if you, Tanya, did you actually get as far as entering this contact information before?
No, when I tried from home to set it up, it wouldn't, it kept saying my TDSB email was invalid. So I just kind of left it, and I had mentioned to Pam, and then I didn't have a chance.
Oh, okay. Is anyone else getting, they don't like your email? That's kind of funny. Okay, we may have.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there another colleague that you can use their
You can sign up somebody else right now. It doesn't have to be you necessarily.
Like just put in another teacher's email for now?
Yeah. And so if you're going to be working with somebody else, you could sign them up right now, and then we can kind of deal with your account a little bit later. I'm sure they won't mind that you sign in as them for today. It's saying you're already registered. Okay. So maybe, Dragana, you could just do the login instead of the register if you're already registered. Okay, hang on about the address. So Rebecca, hang on. We're going to talk about that in a sec. We're only doing this part so far.
And I've allowed people to share their screens. So Tanya, if we need to go in a breakout room to see what's happening, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. We got Tanya's working now. All right. Team members, we're going to talk about that in a sec. This is just you, so we're doing one person at a time. All right, I'm going to move on to the next stage because I see some people are already past the avatar stage. So you can pick a cute animal. You can upload your own photo. I'm not sure if you can skip it entirely, but once you pick an image, you click on the next button. I'll give 30 seconds to do this part. Oh, you've changed schools, yes. You know what, Rebecca? This is probably going to be a recurring problem, and we'll have to talk to EcoSchools Canada because we can't actually delete users. However, you may be able to log in through like being at the Port Royal School, and then if you go to administration and then click on users and find your account, you could probably change your school. I'm not positive about that, but I think you should be able to. Yeah, there's scenarios that they haven't necessarily thought of with their developers, but so there will be some growing pains, but we'll try and get all those ironed out for next year for sure. All right, this is going to be the tricky part. Trickiest part is registering your school. So you need to have your school's address. Hopefully you know that. If you don't, well, you better just leave. I'm kidding. If your school appears, that means that it's already in the database and you can just click on it and go to the dashboard. But probably, unless you're like Rebecca and you are going to Port Royal, you're going to have to do this click on the can't find your school link. And we're going to walk through that process. So hang on, don't do it yet. That's okay, Farah. If you've got an account, that's perfect. You don't have to re-register yourself. This is just for the people that are new to this system. Again, don't do anything till I start the timer, because I'm going to walk through how this business works. So typing in the address of your school, it's kind of like a Google Maps autocomplete thing. So as you start to type in information, you'll see options show up underneath. And when you see the actual address of the full address of your school appear, you can click on it in the options below, or continue typing it yourself. Once you've done that, once you've picked an address, then you're going to see a list of schools that are in the database that I believe are in the neighborhood of that address. And so you're likely not going to see your school in this list. These are Catholic board schools that have already been doing it last year. If it's there, great, you can select it. But probably you're going to click on that Can't Find Your School link. And again, don't do anything just yet, because once you click on that, it changes the user interface a little bit. And you're going to complete what's in that box there. So you actually have to enter in the name of your school manually. Choose elementary, unless you're one of the high school's teachers. And then for the board, just I think type in Toronto, and you'll see the TDSB show up in the list, and select that. Gigi, this is kind of up to you if you want to share an account with all your teachers, or you can create accounts for each of the teachers. To be honest, I don't think there's a big difference whether you share an account or not. It probably doesn't matter. If it's simpler just to share one login, go for it. I think EcoSchools Canada might use it as part of their data, their aggregated data of knowing how many environmental educators there are using the system. So if there's like 5 teachers using one account, they're only going to count one educator doing this. You're going to select your teacher position down at the bottom. Sorry, I was going to put that up there, that you click on the Can't Find Your School link. But select your position as a teacher and click Agree to the Terms. I haven't read the terms yet. I don't think anything bad happens by agreeing to those terms. Like, you don't have to give away your children or anything like that. You probably already started. I'm going to put the minute timer up anyway.
Sorry, I just have a quick question.
Absolutely.
So I registered because I'm new, and I actually by accidentally put in the wrong number for the address of the school. I put 30 instead of 50. So I went back to correct the issue, and then it said that my school is already on the list. So I clicked that, but now it's telling me my email has already been registered because I put my email in. So now it won't let me select my school and go to the next button.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be nice if I could do this live with you. We were told by EcoSchools Canada that we can't register schools on their behalf, and we don't have access to their test server. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly the workflow with the stage you're at there. I would say maybe like just reload.
Should I go back to the main page and just now I was going to say registered and try it from a registered perspective?
Well, if you've already put in your email and your name and stuff like that, and you've gone to the next step, I suspect they've put that into the database. So I would just try the login link instead.
Okay, I'll try that. Thank you.
Yeah, let us know how that works out.
Will do.
Yeah, we're all still a little new and fresh with this system, and we'll work it out eventually.
I was able to log in, so.
Fantastic. Okay. So yeah, Fatima, you're probably not going to see your school in the list. So you'll have to click on the Can't Find My School link, and then enter the school name manually. So maybe you want to just get on your mic and let us, that'd probably be faster than typing, because I'm not sure what you're looking at now.
Yeah, sure. Basically, when I entered it, it says choose your school, and then I looked at Can't Find Your School. I entered it. And when I hit next, it's still saying, please select your school's address from the suggestions.
Oh, so perhaps in the address part, maybe you need to click one of their suggested full addresses. It may not be complete enough for their system. So try continuing your address, and then if it looks like it's the right one in the suggested option below, that you just click that. Aaron, you weren't supposed to go that far. Hang on. It's Aaron, that's not too big of a deal. And it's true. Once you select a plan, and this is why we didn't want you to go ahead, but once you select a plan, they don't let you revert back or choose a different plan. You're now stuck with it. However, it's not a bad thing. You can customize the action cards in your plan, regardless of what you kind of picked. Those are just kind of suggested actions that fit that theme, but you can subtract cards or add other ones. Okay.
Sorry, if we're logged on, should I be clicking the create plan now or waiting?
Hang on a sec.
All right.
But one thing you could possibly do is, actually, I'm not sure how you bring up the school information. I'll have to log in and check myself, but you should be able to bring up the school information, even though you've logged in and not doing our same register path here.
It actually already has my school in there for whatever reason. I entered the right one, but it's the wrong address. But I wrote the right school name, so it seems to have the right school name there.
Yeah, Farah said that in the admin section you might be able to edit.
Yes, so the administration section on the left-hand side menu, I can't see it right this second, but you may be able to click on your school and you'll get this up, the same information. And if it's missing, you can add it. But to be honest, you need to add this information in our first card anyway, so it's probably not a big deal. Yes, so Vivi has already found a PDF that has their suggested pathways. We'll be seeing those in a moment also. Getting back to this business, if you don't know your school's total enrollment or the number of teaching staff, just guesstimate. This information does get asked later on anyway, and you can always go back and change it. So anything that you enter is editable later on. And that's pretty much it. So once you've got your school info in, you are registered yourself and you've registered your school, and you can click on continue. Are there any other questions though or issues at this point that we can try and iron out? Honestly, we've had, I think for the number of people in here, we've had very few issues. So I think that's pretty good. Lots of questions about adding other people. The big thing about this is only add people who are going to help you fill in the questions for your action. So if you've got parents that are volunteering to help water the garden or whatever, but they're not actively involved in, helping you submit your EcoSchools information, don't add them in to here because there's no point. And like I said earlier, we can't yet delete anybody that's added to your user list. I am going to insist that EcoSchools Canada lets us do that. Otherwise, you're just going to get a longer and longer list of people in there that it's going to get more difficult to manage. We don't have to add students yet, but when you add student accounts, you can optionally add their name, but suggest you don't. So you create a username for your student and you don't even need the email. There's no student email or names involved, and they have limited access. So they can help you answer the questions. So you can assign an action card to a particular group of students or one student or a class. So we're talking about how can we do this virtually with our school, and you can assign different actions to different classes and they can log in and do that. And Scott's asking, what if we're not ready for a plan? We're going to suggest a plan to start with, Scott, and that's going to happen in a moment. And again, you can add or subtract the action cards at any time, even later on in the year. So let's say you pick a bunch of stuff and in, February, you're like, oh, we're never going to get around to this. Oh, Callaway, sorry. My apologies. You can remove actions later and it doesn't impact you in any major way. Otherwise, adding people is really easy. So we're going to walk through that. Again, you don't need to do this part. I'll show you how to do it, but you don't have to unless you want to add another colleague. Once we're logged in, you'll want to tap on the administration menu item on the left there, and then tap on users. And that will bring up anybody that's in here. Probably it's just you at this point, but if you've been in the system before, you'll see anybody else. And up at the top, there's that plus button, and that will let you add more people. And when you tap on that button, this dialog pops up. And the first thing to choose is the role. So there's 3 choices. I'll show you the student one because it does change the interface a little bit. So if we select student, all you really get is the username. The email box disappears. So EcoSchools Canada is very cognizant of student privacy. So we really don't want to add anything there. So in terms of username, you could use their first name. You could do student 1, student 2, or the classroom number, perhaps, if you want to assign an account for each class. It's really flexible and it's up to you. It doesn't really matter. In my account, I would have to search for a school because I actually have access to all the schools, but your school should just be there and you don't need to worry about that box. But then enter a really easy password to start. Of course, whoever logs in can change that password later. Any questions so far about adding other people? And again, you can add in parent volunteers only if you think they're going to come in, they're going to log in and help you fill out things here. Tanya, I wouldn't worry about the points so much, but again, the more actions that you have, the more points that you can accumulate, and that will affect your overall, certification level, of course. But EcoSchools Canada this year, especially with COVID, they are suggesting that you don't worry about the points. You just pick the actions that you think you're going to be able to accomplish this year. And again, if you don't get platinum this year because of COVID and the things that you can't do what you want to do, no one's going to look down on you. So don't worry about that. All right, we're getting to the protein and potatoes part of the EcoSchools Canada business, and that is the plan with your actions. And there are over 40 that you can choose from, and they cover, it's cross-curricular, it covers all kinds of subjects and different types of things. So again, whatever works for you and your school. Add and subtract at any time, even like the day before you're going to submit, you can remove or add things. There's no real time limit about that. And as I was just saying, the number of actions will determine your ultimate certification level. And again, it's going to say what you're eligible for. So you may add in all the actions and you're obviously eligible for platinum at that point. But depending on what happens during your audit and how far you got with these, you may not reach platinum, but you're eligible for platinum. And again, pick things that are going to make sense for your school and your situation this year. All right, so here's a quick menu overview of all the different actions. We'll share a link to this PDF. It is a little hidden. I'm not sure if it's the same as what Vivi put in the chat. I think this might be a slightly different PDF. And it is kind of handy, especially Callaway, you're asking, you want to think about what you want to do. Looking at this PDF with your team would probably be helpful to kind of narrow down what you want to tackle. Now, we'll talk about the dashboard first, because this is the thing that you always see when you log in, and it's probably what you're looking at right now. Here's where, especially first time when you register in the fall, this is where you're going to create your plan. Once you've created your plan, as people have probably discovered, you can't choose another one, but you can alter it. And you can choose one of their themed plans, like one for the arts or more of an environmental literacy angle, or you can just start piecemeal and add in the ones that you want to do. So here's our dashboard, and right now, because we are new to it, or likely new to it, you're not going to see much, except for the EcoSchools deadline. It's actually May 13th is probably what you're seeing. This is an older screenshot, and I guess they decided to make it mid-May. But click on that Create Plan button over at the top right, and I'll give you guys 30 seconds to get this far. Probably I don't even need to do 30 seconds. And yes, it is kind of like a shopping cart idea.
Mine looks a little different. When I clicked the create plan, because I was on the registered page, I went to make your own plan from scratch, start with a suggested plan, browse actions.
So that's actually this next part right here.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, that's what I see now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you click on the create plan, you're going to see this overview of their theme plans. Now they used to have, you could pick, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and they would populate actions that met that score value. And for this year, they seem to have these different themes, which is kind of interesting. So if you were really wanting to target a particular level, you'd have to, it's not super clear here if you can do that, but you can certainly add more actions to get to whatever level you're hoping for. What we're going to suggest today,
Chris, sorry to interrupt. May is not seeing the. Can you go back a slide and show her where?
Yeah. Why? Okay, hang on a sec. There we go. So you don't see that create plan blue button at the right-hand side on the dashboard? If you've already selected a plan, Malbé,
I feel like I might be the first one in my school to do this, but I'm saying welcome to your school's action plan, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only person registered.
Interesting. Okay. So somehow a plan was chosen for you, maybe not by you.
I'm newer at the school, so I'll investigate, but I'll keep listening. Thank you.
You know what? Yes, the next stage after picking the plan will still apply to what you have already.
Okay, thank you so much.
You have
I'm not sure if I'm seeing the same thing either. When I go to the plan page.
You may be on our plan. Our plan and the dashboard are often they look kind of similar, and you may have the similar functionality in them. I think if Gigi, you perhaps had already registered, you may be going to our plan.
When I click plans, I see year 2022 as a drop-down menu. It looks like it says plans, and it then says no rows found. Okay, so can you click on dashboard? Where do it'd be in that blue bar on the left. It should be at the very top. Maybe this icon is hiding it. I see year, feedback, status, creation date, submission date, school type. No, so not in that table, but on the left-hand side of the whole window, the blue menu bar on the left. Do you see dashboard? Yeah, I had to scroll up. Oh, okay. So when I go to that page, it says, hello, Marion. Check it out. This is where you can see your action plan progress, important dates and upcoming deadlines. Create a plan to get started. But when I click the plan on the left menu, then I get this, what looks like almost a spreadsheet. Yeah, so click on if you go back to dashboard, click on maybe it says create a plan now instead of create plan, but that should get you to this page of start your plan. What about our plan? It's our plan. Okay. Great plan. Okay. Yeah. It's different. Okay, good. Okay. So yeah, I guess that button takes you to our plan from the dashboard. So you can do it either way. Thank you. No problem. Glad it's working out.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I have the similar problem. I don't see the create your plan thing or hi Meenakshi, this is your school. I don't see the slide you just showed previously. Okay. Do you see anything like what I have on the screen now, where you've got the menu on the left in blue? I do see the menu on the left, and it says achievement, library, footprint.
Right.
Yeah.
So click on our plan. Try that.
Just give me 1 second. Oh, I see library achievement, impact administration. And under administration, we have plans, actions.
Yep. So we don't want to go to administration yet.
Okay.
Above, you may have to scroll up on your screen, but click on our plan. So like on my screen, our plan is actually selected.
Okay, our plan, I selected that.
And do you see anything like what I have I'm sharing?
Hold on, no. I see welcome to your school's action plan, and then there is a plan progress. And
okay, so your school has picked a plan already.
Oh, that was done 2 years ago.
It should be for this year. Why don't you hang on a sec and see if what we do next kind of catches up to what you see.
All right. Okay.
All right. So what I'm going to suggest is that we all start with the getting started plan. If you've picked a different plan already, no big deal. But if you're not sure what you want to do, this is probably a good choice. And again, we can add or subtract actions. So click on Start with this plan for the Getting Started theme or plan or whatever.
Yeah, and some people are still hesitant of clicking the plan because they want to wait with their team. And that's totally awesome. We just wanted to make sure that you feel confident doing the steps, but I'm going to put the link in for the help videos so that if you want to wait and just watch us today, then the help videos on EcoSchools Canada, there's step-by-step process as well, and then you can pause with your team. We again just want to show you the getting started, but again you can add and subtract when you're ready. So yeah, don't feel that we're making you do stuff. Tanya, go ahead.
Apparently, I'm really out to lunch. I am looking here now. So apparently I had tried to register with EcoSchools Canada a year ago, and then it was crazy. And then I tried to re-register and had problems. Now that I had already registered and started a little plan, is that okay? It just carries over?
That's totally okay. Totally okay. So again, Gigi says can't create a new plan because you've already got a plan. No problem. We can work with whatever is selected. This is just, again, if your first time registering, this is the steps you would take. And again, next year, when you register in the fall, you'll do the same thing. It'll be just like this, selecting the new plan for the year. And again, it's super flexible. So really, if you pick the create your own plan, and yes, you're only getting 15 points, so you wouldn't even reach bronze if you only did that, but you'll be adding more actions. We're going to get into there. So once you've got a plan, whether you did it yourself or somehow it was already there, you will see this progress bar. And depending on how many actions you've picked, and again, the screenshot doesn't kind of match up with what we did, but we picked the get started plan. We would have 60 points in total. So we wouldn't quite be hitting silver at 66 points, but we would add a couple more actions and we would, definitely be over silver. And as soon as you hit 101, then you're eligible for platinum. We had schools last year that had like over 200 points. So it's easy to go well past that platinum threshold. Tanya again.
Sorry. So we're platinum from before COVID. Does that carry over at all, or is this sort of like starting fresh and we have
This is starting fresh. So and same before, like you may have been a platinum school 1 year, but you still have to do all the work the next year, right? And so this is kind of the same thing. And again, it is pretty easy to get past that 101 threshold to become a platinum school. It is an easier program than what the EcoSchools program was in the past. And that's not to diminish the work that you do. And in my personal opinion, we really need to focus less on these, kind of individual actions, as Pam mentioned in her keynote. And it's really, we need to start putting pressure on the big corporations that are messing up the planet. And we can do all the, gardens and whatnot that we want. It's not going to change what they're doing. And so the fact that this program is easier to get to platinum, I don't think is a bad thing. Anyway, that's a discussion we could have for a whole other day. Now, if you scroll down from that progress bar, you're going to see your action cards. And these are probably not the ones you're seeing, except for environmental literacy and getting started. So there are some locked actions, and there are some actions that you can remove. So for instance, at the active and sustainable school travel, if I moused over that action card, that delete button would pop up. And if I move my mouse away, it would disappear. So if you didn't want that particular action, you could click on the X and you'll get a confirmation message. Do you want to remove it? And even if you put data in there and you're like, we're not going to finish it, let's just get rid of it, it'll let you know you've got points. Are you sure? It's going to get rid of everything. And well, then you can get rid of it. But yes, the locked ones, like getting started, those are ones that EcoSchools Canada has determined you must do. And this is kind of like getting started with your eco team from the old application. And you just put in the information about your eco team from this year. So this is the card that we're actually going to start with. So in a moment, I'll give you time, but we will get you to click on the Getting Started card. I will show you the library. You don't have to go there yet, but when we visit the library, I did make a few changes. So we were in our plan. We're going to switch to library, and we can see all the other action cards that are available that are not in the plan. And this is where you see all the little plus buttons. So you can add those actions to your plan, depending on, your discussions with your eco team. And one of the actions that I want to point out that is pretty important is this create your own action. So if you do something at your school that's an eco action that you can't find in all of the other actions, you look through all the 40 plus actions, and you're like, what we do in this particular thing doesn't fit, you can use this card. You just have to type in what the action is that you're doing, who's involved, how many hours you have spent doing it, and stuff like that. And you'll get credit for doing that action. And there's 3 of these. So there's 3 create your own action cards that fit anything else that you might be doing. So kind of a neat little addition there. Getting back to our plan though, we will get you to click on the Getting Started card because this is the one that will get you to begin today. And so this is the anatomy of the actions. So when you click on any of the action cards, they all have the same layout, where we've got these 4 tabs across the top about curriculum, SDGs, and EcoSchools in Action. And we have the different sections, the action guide, resources, and certification questions. And so the About tab gives you the deeper overview. You had a very small blurb on the card itself, but here's the overview of what the action is about. It gives you a better idea of whether you want to do it or not. If you go to curriculum, there'll be some curriculum tips in there or connections. And because this is national, they'll be a little bit general, but I'm sure you'll have no problem figuring out whether you can fit this into what you're doing in class. The SDGs, they'll show you specifically what SDGs from UN are connected there. Apparently this one's connected to all of them. And then EcoSchools in Action, you can find some photos of other schools and what they've done for that action. For getting started, I don't know that there's a whole lot to say there other than here are some eco teams. But you can click on the images and there'll be a little blurb, a little description about what that photo is about. And those will increase as we go through time. We'll get more examples of people doing these actions, and we'll add them into the In Action tab. If we take a look at the action guide, this is the real nitty-gritty about what is going to happen in this action, things you need to do before you get started, some tips, and any materials that you'll be using to complete the action. And a lot of those are PDFs, and a lot of them will also be in French and English. So you can check that out. The next part, the resources, this is specifically things that, and I think it's kind of a repeat of the materials at the bottom of the action guide. But this is where you can access the English or French versions of those PDFs. But these will be the worksheets and the tracking sheets and anything else that you need to kind of fill in or fill out as part of doing the action. And finally, the most important part is the certification questions. You'll notice, or you'll discover that there's a real structure to these. So the first 6 to 9 questions are all pretty similar, no matter what the action is, and it's kind of asking, who's involved, and you'll see all that kind of stuff. But they all have a start date. So for this one, you'll be able to put in today because we'll be starting it today. I guess that just gives the auditors an idea of how long you may have been working on a particular action. For the getting started, they ask again your total enrollment and the number of staff. I'm not sure why that's not connected to the information we put in before, but there you go. And if we scroll down to the bottom of this, you can do this right now. Click the Getting Started action card. Go over to your browser and open up this card if you haven't already.
I realize, Chris, there's only 2 must-do actions. One is EcoLit and one is getting started. So that's good news, because then you can really choose what you're going to do. Right. And I know from in the past, last year or the year before, when there was the pilot going on, there was different actions that were locked depending on what kind of theme you picked. And so that may change from year to year, which actions are locked that EcoSchools Canada wants you to do. But I suspect these will at least be the 2 that you have to do every year. And there may be others. All right, so once we're on, that's okay. If you need to, you can always come back to these. So you can start an action, and I'll show you in a sec, because if I scroll down to the bottom, there are 2 buttons, and the one that I want you to click after you do as much of this as you can is the come back later. So fill in what you can, and then if you need to do any other, and especially for some actions that take, multiple weeks to do, you are going to do what you can and then come back and fill in more as you do things. Every time you enter something into the system, it is automatically saved. So even if you type something in and then closed your browser and you didn't click that come back later, it's still saved. So it's pretty handy that way. You're not going to lose anything, hopefully. They have a new, last year if you did this, there were no ways to upload documents. So now they've added that. So any of those worksheets that you filled in, you can scan those, take a picture of those, and upload them into the action. And one of the great things I think about this system is that all of your materials that you need for this action are part of the card. You don't have to go searching for other parts on their website to get the worksheets and whatnot. In terms of creating your portfolio, there's not really that idea of a portfolio anymore, other than you use this attachment tool to add any documents. And you can take pictures of student work, anything that supports what you're doing in the action. As they say, they don't do video files yet, but I guess they're thinking about that. You can add them to YouTube and then put the links here in that action description box. All right, so I'm going to give you guys a minute to fill in as much as you can about the getting started. Oh, are we late, Pam? Sorry.
Is it still okay to guess about how many kids are at our school and how much staff roughly?
Absolutely, yeah. And again, that's a number that you can change later on once you've done something or are figured out what it is.
Yeah, so there's some questions in the chat. Chris, we've got 2 more minutes.
Yes.
So Nicole, your teaching partner, has already entered some certification questions, but I can't figure out how to click on them. Chris, do you know how to do that? Like the answers, like if they've saved the card instead of come back later, can they still edit it?
I'm pretty sure that you can click on the card, or is it not there anymore?
Nicole, do you want to speak to that? Is the card still
like if they've clicked done, and this is where I'm a little rusty, it may be that they removed the card being visible in your plan because you've finished it to help clean it up. But it should be, if you scroll down, it should be at the bottom. I think there's a completed section if you scroll all the way down in your plan, and so you can reopen it.
Sorry, so I'm not sure if maybe I'm not in the right spot, but when I went to certification questions, I can see a list of questions that it looks like perhaps she has entered.
Okay.
So I sort of just see a list, but then when I try to sort of, like, there isn't an option to sort of click on them to go in and look closer, because it's just, I can't see like the full questions and stuff.
Do you see, or what you're looking at is a big table of stuff?
Yeah, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, so name. You don't want to be in the plans part in administration. So don't be in the administration section. Click on our plan further up in that menu. Because yes, you can see all the plan or all the actions that you selected in your plan. That's a bit more in the minutia of things.
Okay. So sorry, tell me again. So so now I'm in the our plan. So if I were to click on one of the actions, and then I'm taking a look, and then the certification questions, right? Under there.
Yes,
gotcha.
you open up the action, and then you see certification questions down at the bottom section of your
Perfect.
action.
Okay, sorry. Thanks. I was in the wrong
spot. No. We're all learning how to navigate in here, right? And it's a totally new interface that you're not used to.
For sure.
And Kelly had a question, but what I'm going to suggest is that if you're at a point where you're need to get some questions answered, we're offering office hours every Wednesday and Thursday from 4 to 5, and then that way you can share your screen and we can work through some of the stuff. So this isn't the only time you're going to get us. I want to do the breakout rooms just so that you have a chance to talk to folks, but and you're going to be assigned to a breakout room. But however, you can come out of that breakout room and into the main room if you're desperate to get the answer now. So Chris, do you want to move ahead to the
I just wanted to do this part that you have got your first action started and you're well on your way to becoming certified with EcoSchools Canada. And I guess I'll stop that right there then. And let's do the breakout rooms.
So
no, wait, I have to show the question, don't I?
Yes.
Hang on. Premature there.
I've got 4 to 5 people per room. When you get there, all I was hoping that we could do is that we would just talk to each other how we're going to do this year. And we would use the wisdom in the room to figure out how we're going to create teams, what's possible, only because this is the biggest barrier, I think, is how we're going to do this. So really, how do you hope to empower students to take action in their school community and beyond this year? I'll close the room at 11:25, so we only get a few minutes, and then we'll do more of this throughout the year. Okay, so I'm going to do this. Yeah, so feel free to select the breakout room. And Melina, Lenny, or Stephanie, if you want to ask us questions or let me know if you're having any trouble getting to the breakout rooms.
Hi, it's Stephanie. Sorry, hold on, I can also, sorry. I'm like in this little room off the gym and it's kind of a bunker, so the internet is like spotty.
Yeah.
When I tried to add my VP, it said she was already registered as a member. Is it because I maybe have created a new account and she initially already registered, or?
She must have registered already.
Okay.
Is it possible at a different school?
No, we're both at Deer Park.
So if you click on the administration link and then go to users.
Right.
Do you see both of you in there?
Sorry, I'm just going to exit the full screen. So I go to administration.
Yep. And then
I go to users. I think that's like I might have created my own account.
You don't see both of you there?
No, because I couldn't even find the school. I had to add the school.
Yes. Well, that's normal.
So it's just me. And then when I try to add her, it says this account already exists.
Okay.
Or like so this person is already registered.
Yeah, they do it by email. So it's possible your VP's registered at a different school in the system.
Okay, or maybe because I typed in the school, maybe I didn't type out the full name.
No, it's done by email address.
Oh, okay.
So it won't be connected. I mean, the accounts are connected to the school, but if you don't see that account in your list right now at Deer Park, then I suspect it's at a different school.
Okay, I'll ask her. I mean, she's been here longer than me, but I'll just ask her. And then I tried to also add my colleague, Kaylee, that's registered, and it said that didn't recognize her email address, but I literally cut and pasted it from like the TDSB, you know.
Okay, so these are things we're going to have to bring up with Eco Schools Canada. That
okay, no worries
with it. But you can, like I say, you can share your account since we know that works.
I just made a generic. I just made a generic password, and that's what I'm working part-time in the library, so I'm hoping just to do a few initiatives like with different classes when they come to the library.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Because in terms of like cohorting and having like a club, I'm just going to maybe do it that way.
Right. Well, that's again, creative way to do it.
So, okay, thanks so much for your help. Sorry
no problem, Stephanie.
Okay, thank you, bye.
Hey, Melina, how can we help?
Hi, Pam. You know what? I'm going to say I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm going to be honest with you. I was feeling a little overwhelmed. I love Eco Schools, and I was worried. I was thinking, how do we do it during COVID? And I'm so happy because I feel like I'm coming out of the session feeling like, oh, it's doable. Like we can do it. We can bring it back, right? It's just kind of getting back into the swing of things. So I'm really happy about that. And I'm just wondering if you have suggestions. I had to come in late this morning, so you may have addressed it right at the beginning. But how to address all the waste coming from like COVID, right? Like the masks, everything, all of the extra stuff, right? So any suggestions around that? I think I saw that one school or somebody was, there was a way to recycle masks, or there's a company, is that true or no, right? Like not in our blue bins, or is there like an organization collecting masks or that's not? I thought I saw that somewhere. Okay.
I'll look into it, to be honest, but it's going to be one of those things that we're going to have to let go. Because it'll drive us to drink. I've already drunk all my liquor budget this year.
I get it.
But Toronto just changed the rules around paper towel, so we can collect paper towel now.
And put that in the green bin.
Yeah.
Okay.
The mask thing is awful, and it's polyester and it's microbeads, and it's just people's safety has to come first. Unfortunately. So we will be keeping you posted. I will write that down, Melina, about the mask recycling, because I think people would be interested in that. But it does, because we're on the Toronto waste thing, it depends on Toronto as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes, I wasn't sure if there was like maybe a third party, like, because we're doing the battery recycling challenge, for example, like that's through a third party. So I wasn't sure if there was something similar that we could do.
Yeah. It's this huge thing, but literally it's something we're going to have to let go this year and just come back next year.
Okay. And is there any suggestions for walk to school campaigns? We're kind of late this year, but in the past we used to go out into the community. Like our staff would go in before school and we would walk with the kids. I do miss that. I hope we can get back to that point. And so I'm just wondering, like, any suggestions of like how to make something like that doable again, other than just promoting it generally. But we found that when there was something really concrete initiative with that we had a great turnout, right? Because it was staff led. So any suggestions around that, I would love.
Yeah. So I would, again, we're going to tap the wisdom in the room and do this more often in terms of ask people what they're doing this year, because I think but I would make it maybe, rather than doing it daily, maybe have a couple focus like the last Friday of a month, kind of what we did with Earth Hour. And you can still meet outside with masks.
Mm-hmm.
But you can maybe not go into the buildings, but meet outside the mask and still have that train.
Yes. Okay.
Or it could be a walk from school to home. It doesn't necessarily have to be.
Yeah.
So then you've already got people there and you can walk together, because you're still traveling the distance.
Yes. Yeah. No, I never thought about that, right? After school, for sure. Why not? Yeah. Okay. So you give me something to think about. I was worried more about mixing cohorts, even though we're outside, but even, we do keep our cohorts separate at recess. So I wasn't sure if there were some, restrictions around that, but I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and if you can get your principal to do maybe an early release day, then the walk to school becomes, or a late start like they do in high school, then the walk to school can be part of the school day.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, you're giving me some good things to think about. Thank you.
But you're so creative. I think you'll do great. Okay,
we'll figure it out. But thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. I'll close all rooms, get everybody back in. Okay, welcome back. I'm sorry that was so short. So what I need to tell you is a couple of things. Those of you who are going for platinum, there is no interim platinum audit. What we're going to do is because we're small numbers, we don't have the 300 schools registering, we are going to offer coaching for everyone. And so that way you'll have a chance to get some feedback and talk to people. We're also thinking about having a January, February kind of meet and greet release provided so we can talk again and just relate it to ideas, because we realize that we need to start and then maybe have more sharing sessions. I also want to tell you a little bit more of what we're offering you this year. Let me just share my screen. So we've got some supports. The November 6th conference, again, is free. Saturday morning, 9 to 12:30. Amazing speakers. Already 150 of you signed up, so that's awesome. But we are opening it up to Eco Schools Canada as well as TDSB. And don't forget the webinars. We have some amazing webinars coming up. As I mentioned, on October 27th, we have what happened last year and best practices. So we have a high school group and an elementary teacher talking about how they managed this last year. So that'll be great. In terms of Eco School certification, if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll find out about the office hours. And so every Wednesday and Thursday, we'll be offering time for you to just come and ask. We can brainstorm with you. We can look at your screen. We can figure out what's going on. But direct supports, if you have a virtual Eco Team meeting with enough time, we'd love to be there. So invite us and, check in with us. We can be your cheerleaders. Eco coaching, as I said, there's no interim audit, so we're going to move it to eco coaching, where you can have the one-on-one support that you need, but we can also have, again, a time for you to hear from other folks. So we're going to be really creative this year with the virtual platform. And now there's two newsletters. There's TDSB newsletter and there's Eco Schools newsletter. Eco Schools newsletter will give you that certification tips, all the best practices, resources, and then the TDSB newsletter will keep you in line with events. You can also obviously sign up on Twitter. Then what's coming up? Middle school conference will be in the winter. So again, it will be virtual. Likely, but that means that more people can come to the Middle Schools Conference. We have a Youth Action Climate Guide attached with some grants. So we've got some grants from the City of Toronto so that you can be empowered. And don't forget, LSF also has money to offer. So do check out Learning for Sustainable Futures. Again, we'll put this all in an email and all through newsletters. And then don't forget your Eco Schools Canada. They have campaign kits. They have tracking sheets. They have resources. They also have how to do this in videos, little short videos that you and your team of students can watch and get this right. Okay, 11:31. It is time to say goodbye. We have an exit poll, and then enjoy the rest of your day.